This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The champ is
the one that everybody wants, me.
Becky Lynch is going to WrestleMania. Claymore!
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. This is my iron. You're going to acknowledge me.
What's going on, everybody, guys and girls? Welcome back to another edition of the SmackDown Review right here on the WWE Podcast. As always, I'm one of the hosts of the show, Michael Ritter. You can find me on Twitter or X at Michael5Ritter. And also one of the hosts of the Football Function Podcast, available on all of your podcasting platforms, including the one that you're listening to this show on, and also available on Patreon if you're tired of those pesky ads and you just want a more enjoyable listening experience. And I definitely advise you to go subscribe over on Patreon for not only the WWE Podcast and all of the goodies that you get throughout the week on that platform, but also the Football Function, as it's also a growing family, and it would mean the world to me if we could earn your support. But I do want to thank you guys for listening last week, helping me get through that. Everybody that reached out and said, hey, your SmackDown review and your thoughts and comments about Bray Wyatt and, even Terry Funk to an extent was somewhat a way for you guys to say it as well. Some of the things that you were feeling and you didn't really know how to say it, or you just didn't really know what to say. Maybe we relate in that sense, where we were able to kind of get through that together. At the very least, that's what I hope. And if not, I hope you were able to get through it whatever way makes you feel most comfortable, because it wasn't an easy week. It's getting to the point now that you kind of, it's still a shock, but the wound is nowhere near as fresh. So I just wanted to thank you guys really quickly. Last week was the 150, my 150th episode here on the SmackDown Review, and it really didn't get a chance to get any notoriety, which is fine. It's not like it's some major milestone or anything like that, but I did want to have it a little bit of a different feel. I wanted the show's vibe to be a little bit different for the 150th episode, and that's just not the way that the cookie crumbles sometimes. So nonetheless, thank you guys so much for tuning in last week. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. This is coming out a little bit later than, what the SmackDown Review has typically been coming out. It's just schedule related. Number one, I'm sure you've noticed, my co-host John Carrasco is not here. He was not here last week. He's not here this week. To be honest, I don't know exactly when John is going to be back. He has some personal matters that he needs to focus his attention on. Totally understand that. That's just, again, how life works sometimes. You don't always get to do exactly what you want to do when you want to do it. Sometimes you have to kind of push some of your hobbies and some of the things that you enjoy to the side so you can focus on what's really important, and that is obviously what's going on behind the scenes, in your personal life. There's been times here that I've gone through some stuff where thankfully I only have to do this show one time a week, because if it was more of a responsibility or more of, a time obligation, it would be tough. If I had to record as much as Matt does, or just, edit and produce as much as Matt does for the WWE Podcast, then I don't know if I would have been able to do it, because that is a lot on your plate. And, because I love you guys, the listeners, the loyal listeners so much, and I love the WWE Podcast, I was never going to completely just walk away. There were times, though, where it was like, man, you can't just shut off your mind. You can't just shut off what's going on in your personal life. And sometimes that bleeds into how you deliver a podcast. So if that's ever, been a case where I didn't seem like myself or something like that, it was usually just, dealing with life. And that's just part of it. So I do thank you guys for, sticking with me through all this time, because I do believe that the best is yet to come. And I did kind of want to touch on the whole SmackDown Review and it coming out on Saturdays opposed to Friday nights. Well, it always drops on Saturdays most of the time. But for a while there, John and I were doing live reviews where we would be sending Matt the SmackDown Review no later than like 9:10 p.m. Central Time, 10:10 Eastern or wherever, but you get what I'm saying, is that it was a very rapid fire, a very quick review that we would send Matt, and I enjoy doing that. It was a fun experience. But if John isn't here, I'm going to be completely honest, live reviews are a little bit difficult by yourself. It's just kind of the nature of it. You don't get to bounce the conversations for what you're seeing off of somebody else. You kind of just have to roll with it and talk for X amount of minutes, and that's just not really a format that I'm comfortable with right now. And to be completely honest, guys, I feel like I do my best. I give my best SmackDown review whenever I watch the show, take my notes, watch highlights or anything that I maybe didn't get a chance to see as thorough, or maybe I just want to watch again to have my memory refreshed. And then I record either later that night or the next morning. That's whenever I can deliver my best show. It is what it is. That's just something that I've noticed. Whenever you are, bringing your A game, whenever you have your fastball, like is the way I've always liked to say it. Whenever I don't have a good podcast, I say, man, I didn't have my fastball today. Hopefully next time I do a little bit better. I feel like whenever the show is a post SmackDown, actually reviewing the show in its entirety, it's just more so what I can do by myself and feel like I can deliver you guys the best show possible. So that's kind of what we're going to do for now. It's not a guarantee that we're always going to do it like this. Sometimes, for the sake of time, it is easier to record live and just to knock the show out as it's going on. So it's kind of going to be a little bit of a mixed bag, what you can expect for the SmackDown review, when it's going to come, who's going to be on it, exactly the type of format that it's going to be, but no later than Saturday afternoon. I understand. This is a well-oiled machine here, especially whenever you got a PLE tonight, Payback. Like, you want to get the SmackDown review out as early as you possibly can. So I'm taking that into effect, and I just want to make this as good of a show as it could possibly be. So that's really all I wanted to say before the show. Give you guys a shout out for the support for last week's episode, us passing 150 here on the SmackDown review. Let you guys know about our good buddy John. Send him some kind words. Maybe give him a shout out if you can. I know that the loyal listeners, obviously DJ Kuzmo, Grim Reaper, many, many others, Grace as well. There's been several people who have shown support to both John and myself that, we want to make sure you guys know that y'all are why we enjoy doing this every single week, and why it's not necessarily like a great feeling whenever we can't. Like, John has told me literally, man, I'm pissed off that I have to miss this. Like, he really does not enjoy not being on the SmackDown review. So if you are a loyal listener and you're somebody who's, seen John's growth throughout all of 2022 and now here into 2023, then, give him some words of encouragement. Because, I definitely miss him here on the show, and I'm sure that some of you listeners do as well. And also just wanted to give you guys an update on the whole scheduling, whether it's a live SmackDown review or a post SmackDown review. I just wanted to kind of touch base with you guys and fill you in on the format and what you can expect possibly going forward with the SmackDown review. But without anything else to say, no shameless plugs, no little news, tidbits, anything like that, we can go ahead and get into SmackDown Review 151, which aired on September 1st, 2023 from Hershey, Pennsylvania. Shout out to none other than DJ Kuzmo for the location breakdown. And I know that some of you might wonder, like, hey, it says it on the screen at the beginning of SmackDown where the show is. Like, how does DJ Kuzmo provide the location breakdown? Well, DJ tells me most of the time before SmackDown even goes on the air. He actually goes and looks it up himself. He doesn't just have it appear on the TV and then tell me. So I do give DJ a shout out because that's something he's done. He's gone out of his way to text me, hey, this is where SmackDown is tonight, because there's sometimes where I miss it, when I don't know, like, damn it, did you guys see where SmackDown was tonight? What's the arena? I pay attention to that kind of stuff. Number one, I like to travel. A lot of these places I've been to, if not the actual arena, the city I've been to. And sometimes, like if you go to OKC, Fort Worth, Houston, one of these places that are local, I have been to that arena. And it's always cool. The American Airlines Center in Dallas, Survivor Series 2003. That's just it's literally where the Dallas Mavericks play their basketball games. That's where Survivor Series 2003 was, when The Undertaker was buried alive by Kane. In that stadium, every time I go to Dallas, every time I drive by it, I think about that pay-per-view. So that's kind of why I like to be familiar with where the show's taking place. Not only the city, but sometimes the arena as well. So shout out to DJ for always coming in clutch with those location breakdowns. And it was no secret how this SmackDown was going to start. At least for me anyways. Whenever you found out that John Cena was going to be in attendance, not only for tonight, or the SmackDown that aired, but he's going to be on the next 7 SmackDowns, going to be on some pay-per-views as well. I'm all for this. Like, if there's anything that you can take positive away from this writer's strike and, what's going on in the Hollywood world, movies, TV shows, all of that production, all of those projects are on pause. They're pretty much at a standstill right now. Hell, I listened to a bunch of, rewatch podcasts, whether it's, for TV shows, movies, whatever. I've already kind of highlighted some of those podcasts that I listen to. Even those are on a little bit of a hiatus because they can't stream it. They're taking a stand. They're out there on the picket lines. They're doing what they can to give the writers what they deserve. But a lot of that for us, the consumer, the person who is in the audience or, listening or watching, whatever, it kind of sucks for us. We're like, damn, I hope they get what they deserve. But man, like we're over here without our content, without all these projects that we were supposed to get that are now having to get pushed and delayed. If there's any positive, if there's any silver lining you can take away from this, it's the fact that it freed up John Cena's schedule. Now he's like, well, I am a workhorse. I'm somebody that likes to push it to the limit no matter what, whether it's wrestling, whether it's acting, whether it's my Make-A-Wish stuff. John Cena is somebody that is never 1 foot in, half foot, or 1 foot out. Even whenever he comes back, whenever he comes back to his quote-unquote home at the WWE, you can just tell that it's genuine, Like you can tell that he's not just there to hit somebody with an FU and then give the "you can't see me" sign to the camera and walk away. Like, no, he's there to genuinely share his compassion with the fans. He's there to thank you. He's always trying to get the fans involved and let you know that you do play a pretty big role in, why he continues to come back and the type of career he's had up to this point. John Cena is somebody that he's never too big for his britches. He's somebody that is never too good or thinks he's way higher on another level than someone below him where he doesn't have to, shake his hand and introduce himself as, hey, my name is John, what's your name? And he'll remember your name most of the time. That's a thing. And let's just say that whether you love John Cena, whether you hate him, it's pretty polarizing usually. There's not a lot of lukewarm Cena fans out there where they're like, I like John Cena, but it's not that big of a deal, whatever. Like, fans are usually pretty hard, one way or the other, how they feel about John Cena, but you have to appreciate him. You have to appreciate his longevity. Like, that's impressive in of itself. Not a lot of people can look the way that John Cena looks whenever he, puts on his ring gear. He looks pretty much the same as what he did. I know he's not as jacked. Holy crap, guys. Do you expect 20 years to go by and John Cena to still look like John Cena in the Ruthless Aggression era? That just ain't happening. Like, John Cena was jacked in his early 20s back then. Now, he's a 40-year-old man, losing a little bit of hair, starting to age a little bit. You can see wrinkles on his body. You can just see the crow's foot on his eyes and his face. Like, John Cena is getting old. So the fact that he can still come back, cut a promo with the best of them, and be a much better version of himself than some of these other, legends that come back and they give us a different version of themselves, it hurts to watch. It's not that way with John Cena. With John Cena, you get his A game 10 times out of 10. And I think that's exactly what we got tonight. John Cena opens the show, announces that he will be hosting Payback. And like I said, he was genuinely thanking the WWE Universe for quote-unquote everything that they've done over the years and what they continue to do. But the sweetness and the tear-to-your-eye feeling that we were having right there with John Cena is quickly stopped. Jimmy Uso comes out, interrupts him. He does have new music. I will say that. I'm not sure if you guys caught the grammar error or something like that whenever Jimmy Uso was coming out. Right there on the TV screen, there was 3 M's in his name. There's only 2 M's in Jimmy, and it said Jimmy. Classic mistake, easily happens, but I just thought it was kind of funny that it actually made its way to television. But Jimmy immediately calls out John Cena, questions why he's even there in the first place. He even goes as far as to say that him and Roman Reigns are exactly alike. The only difference is that John Cena does what he does with a smile on his face, and Roman Reigns is just a flat-out a-hole. But John Cena says that there's actually something that he's wanted to say to Jimmy, for 3 years. Things get quiet for a little bit, and then he looks him right in the eyes and says, "The wrong Uso quit." Pretty much, tries to do a little mic drop moment there. Jimmy Uso does not like that. He tries to sneak a super kick in, but John Cena catches it and then gives him an FU or an AA for all of his trouble. This was a little bit strange to me. Just whenever it first happened, my initial reaction, I didn't know whose music it was because you saw John Cena's face and we just hear music. I'm like, I know he's kind of new. Is that Grayson Waller's music? I wasn't sure who it was that was coming out. I look, see it's Jimmy Uso. Okay, they're giving him a whole new music, which means they are going all in. making him his own guy. He's a singles wrestler now. So that, take it for what it's worth. But I was a little bit confused. I was like, damn, all right, so is this what we're doing? Are we going to have Jimmy Uso go on a little bit of a heel feud with John Cena, and John Cena being the babyface? Like, is this what we're going to get? I don't think so. I think this was just a way to remind us that the show was really supposed to be centered around Jimmy Uso. The show that was supposed to happen last week, it was supposed to be centered around, what happened with Jimmy Uso. Why did Jimmy do what he does? He was advertised that he was going to be on TV. Paul Heyman said it even last week that Jimmy Uso was going to be here tonight. So I thought maybe this is what we're going to do, right? Like, we're going to get Jimmy Uso trying to feud with one of the top baby faces to ever live, John Cena. And I got to be honest, like, you can do a lot worse than that. Like, if you're giving me John Cena and Jimmy Uso as his first singles feud, that was going to, be music to my ears. I would have absolutely loved that. But it does not appear that that's what we're going to get, at least right now. I do feel like they had an interaction for a reason, so we'll probably end up seeing a little bit more of these two in the same ring over the next 7 weeks. But as we sit here right now, Jimmy Uso goes on to have other issues with other people throughout the duration of the night, so we'll definitely get there. We do have up next a backstage interview with Kayla Braxton. She's talking to Grayson Waller and Austin Theory, and she asked what they think about John Cena hosting Payback. And after a little bit of a pause, they both burst out laughing and try to downplay it. Theory says, Cena, I beat Cena at WrestleMania, blah, blah, blah. And they were just having a little bit of a joke at John Cena's expense. We'll see if they continue to have that ability to joke at John Cena, because I have a feeling that, once he gets on the microphone, he'll be able to pick both of those guys apart pretty easily. Up next, we get a tag team match. Rey Mysterio and Santos Escobar versus Grayson Waller and Austin Theory. Waller does get the win by pinning Santos Escobar after hitting a rolling stunner. Escobar's knee ends up being the weakness that leads to the LWO's loss here. And you have to wonder how long they're going to continue trotting him out with a hurt knee. I mean, obviously, this match had no stipulations or anything like that. It wasn't a meaningful match. It was just pretty much trying to further Austin Theory and Rey Mysterio's feud that they're going to have going into Payback. But I'm not, number one, I'm not a fan of Grayson Waller's finishing move. It's way over the top, like, come on, bro. If you have to get out of the ring, jump into the ring through the rope just to hit a stunner, like, you're doing too much. Like, that's just kind of how I feel about it. Like, come on, dude. Like, if you're going to try to rip off the stunner, which, hey, that's what it is. I mean, call it what you want. Kevin Owens is technically doing the same thing, but we all love Kevin Owens, so nobody's going to call him out for it. If you're going to rip off the stunner, don't try to add that little twist that just makes it, quote-unquote, my own little thing. No, we know what you're doing. We know that you're still trying to rip off the stunner, and I just feel like you're doing too much. Eventually, it's going to lead to, it's kind of like the big ending, like, people hate it. People are never going to be a fan. I'm sure there are some people out there who enjoy this finishing move, but I ask you why? Like, wow, like, what's so enjoyable about him getting out of the ring, having to dive through the bottom two ropes, which completely takes me out of the moment. Like, are you freaking kidding me, man? Like, what are we even doing here? But it's neither here nor there. We'll address that as it continues to be his move over the coming months. Hopefully, though, WWE does something about that, or he realizes, maybe this isn't quite what I thought it was whenever I was creating this whole character, and maybe I should switch it up a little bit. That's what I would do if I were Grayson Waller, but, it's not my call. It's not my decision. If he wants to keep, having the rolling stunner be his move, then he's just going to have to get it picked apart on a weekly basis every single time that it does, I guess, get used. But, hey, I mean, he won a match with it. He's won several matches with it, so it's not like it's an ineffective move. It's just not believable. So that's my only gripe with it there. Let's see. Backstage, we get Adam Pearce and Michin having a little bit of a conversation, talking backstage. Jimmy bursts in, interrupting people, just being completely rude, and then Adam Pearce immediately calls him out for it, and pretty much just says, no, like, you're not going to do this. You're not going to be rude, boss people around, tell people what they're going to be doing, all that good stuff. Like, shout out to Adam Pearce. Shout out to Scrap Daddy Pearce for dropping a pair. Pretty much saying, like, look, dude, you're not going to burst in my office and tell me what I'm going to be doing. I will say, though, Adam Pearce doesn't have the same energy with everybody. People do a lot worse than what Jimmy Uso did, and, he pretty much just sits there and, tightens his jaw up and acts like he's biting his tongue or something like that. Like, I've seen Adam Pearce have a different type of body language whenever somebody's being, quote-unquote, very rude to him. And why he decided to, drop the hammer on Jimmy, I have no idea. But Jimmy was the one that did not get away with it. And I got to say, though, I did enjoy seeing it. I just hope he does that continuously. Like, we don't need to see him try to punk every single wrestler that has a problem with the way he's running the show as a WWE official. But whenever they are out of line, similar to how Jimmy Uso is, yeah, I mean, it makes sense to have him kind of stand his ground. He's like, 6'3" at least? Like, he's a big dude. Stand your ground. Say, hey, I'm hired here for a reason. This is my job, and you're not going to walk all over me and do exactly what the hell you want to do. So, yeah, shout out to Adam Pearce for, I guess, growing a pair and showing us who actually does run SmackDown. Moving on, we get Bobby Lashley coming out next, dressed to the nines like usual, and he actually is getting a lot of love and showing that same love to the live audience. Someone actually shouted, "I love you, Bobby." Like, you just heard one person, one fan shout that, and he obviously says, "I love you too." I can't remember that I've seen Bobby Lashley get this much love, like legitimately. He's always kind of been appreciated. He's always been a wrestler that has fans, but he's also been somewhat underappreciated, and he kind of, for as big as he is, as big of a star he could be, and as believable he is as like a champion, he's not really thrown around in that World Heavyweight Championship, that WWE Championship title picture. He's always kind of kept around, that mid-card. He's never really gotten a chance to get thrown through that glass ceiling. But it does show, with fans showing him love like that he does have the support. And obviously he has members by his side now because he introduces the Street Profits, who come out looking fresh to death as well. They thank Bobby, who, Bobby's like, you don't got to thank me. At least not literally. He tells them that they can thank him by continuing their success, by having continued success, and to continue taking steps forward in this development as them being forces to be reckoned with here on SmackDown, which is exactly what Bobby Lashley pretty much warns the entire WWE. He says that we are putting the whole roster, the whole WWE on notice. They're coming for power, control, and championship gold. And that kind of segues right into next. Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens come out for their tag team match that they have against Cruz del Toro and Joaquin Wilde. And we get a little bit of a face-off. They let them go by. Obviously, the Street Profits make a little path and tell the reigning champs, KO and Sami, to walk on by, walk down to the ring. But the visual of them having a little bit of a face-off, I feel like was a tease. It was a way to kind of let us know, like, hey, this is coming down the pike, a little bit down the road here. Get ready. Now, we're going to talk about the predictions and if KO and Sami are even going to be the champions when that time comes a little bit later in the show. But it at least let us know, like, hey, this is something you could have to look forward to. These champs that you guys love that seemingly are on top of the world versus this up-and-coming team that have a new little character change. And they're exciting. So there's multiple ways that you can go about this. Nothing is set in stone yet, obviously, but I do feel like that little face-to-face shot that we got at the top of the ramp, it's not for nothing, like they are going to for sure touch back on that at some point. That's at least what I feel like they should do. It would be very foolish if they didn't. But like I said, we get Sami and KO versus two members of the LWO, and the Undisputed Champs win the match relatively quickly. It wasn't a squash match, but this was just a little bit of a filler. A little bit of, let's get Sami and KO on our television screens and maybe set up the Street Profits versus them down the line. I will say, have not watched Raw in probably a month, and it was nice to see Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn on my TV because I don't see him very often anymore. And as crappy as it is, I am somebody who does enjoy their feeling like there's two separate worlds in WWE. Raw should feel like a completely different show, a completely different roster than what is over on SmackDown. Seeing The Miz was a little strange. We get it. They're having a Raw versus SmackDown feud with him and LA Knight. But the fact that I haven't seen Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn pretty much since the draft made me feel good. And I love seeing them. It's not like, ooh, I'm glad that I haven't seen them. I'm just glad that the brand split feels like a brand split. And I'm going to talk about that until I'm blue in the face. And hopefully they eventually take the rules that they created serious and they follow them. But anyways, let's continue on here in the show. Jimmy Uso, he's trying to leave the arena when he's met by AJ Styles. And I knew something like this was going to happen. As soon as he cut off and yelled at Michin, right there by Adam Pearce, I was like, well, she seems like she has enough people in her corner that is not going to let that slide. And sure enough, AJ Styles tells him that nobody wants him there anyways, talking to Jimmy Uso as he's trying to leave. He says, go ahead and leave, dude. Nobody wants you here anyways. Eventually, he shoves Jimmy to the ground before Solo sneaks up and hits him from behind. And then Solo tells Jimmy, as Jimmy's laying there, "You're out of the bloodline when we say you're out." Jimmy really doesn't agree with that. He says not him, not Roman, not Paul. Nobody can tell him anything. And then he seemingly leaves the arena. You think this is it. You think, all right, this is all we're going to get from Jimmy Uso. He's going to have a good night. He's going to leave. Obviously, that is not the case. A little bit later, maybe after the commercial break, AJ Styles calls out Solo Sikoa, reminds us that the Bloodline do not run SmackDown. And if we're going to be honest, SmackDown is still the house that AJ Styles built. You know, those are his words. Exactly how he said it. He wanted to remind us that SmackDown is his house. He's not a visiting team here. You know, that's his locker room. And I'm by it. You know, I'm all for AJ Styles, you know, being elevated back to what he's supposed to be. This dude's I almost cussed. This dude's a freaking legend, dude. Like, he is a living legend, still on the roster. I'm going to be honest. I got his action figure last night. Literally last night, I got AJ Styles Ultimate Edition, his white gear that he wore for WrestleMania 38, which I was there in person for in Dallas. So that's a little reason why I easily jumped on this figure as soon as I saw it on the shelf. Was I'm kind of biased to those events that I was there for. You know, I have the Kevin Owens versus Stone Cold Steve Austin action figure as well, where he has the, you know, that bald cap. I don't have the bald cap head on the figure. I kept his normal figure, but the fact that he's wearing that shirt, and I know that that figure was built off of one of the greatest wrestling shows that I've ever seen, just because I was there in person, obviously. I know it's whenever you compare WrestleManias, go down the list, WrestleMania 38 is not going to be remembered as one of the greatest WrestleManias of all time, but it was my first time ever seeing Stone Cold Steve Austin. I never thought I'd see him wrestle. Never thought that I would see him wrestle in person. Now, obviously, I saw him wrestle back whenever he was there, but in person, I was a child then. So now that I'm actually an adult, capable of going to pretty much any event that I want to, seeing Stone Cold Steve Austin wrestle, man, that was something that is not only just bucket list as a wrestling fan, but in life in general. Like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? So I had to get the Kevin Owens figure once I saw that one was available. And that's just, you know, that's just what I like to do whenever it comes to seeing figures who are wearing the gear that I was at that event for. Now, getting back on track, that's why I got the AJ Styles last night, was because, I mean, he's on my list in terms of wrestlers who I, quote-unquote, rock with. So, yeah, I like seeing him kind of put his foot down here on SmackDown and say, look, dude, you ain't running nothing. Like, we are the OC. We can hang with the bloodline, all right? You guys are worried about Roman Reigns? I'll handle Roman Reigns. You guys focus on the, you know, Solo Sikoa. If Jimmy comes back, who knows? I like the confidence from the OC, and I hope that we see more of them on TV here on SmackDown, because obviously they're on the roster. But seeing this version of them, that we're not going to take no you-know-what, yeah, give me that version of the OC. But up next, Miz comes out. Him and LA Knight have a little bit of an elite back-and-forth promo battle. I do feel like they've both done better. They both kind of stumbled over their words just a little bit, nothing too crazy. I mean, whenever you're going back and forth, and people are listening to every single word that you say, it's going to be tough to not stumble on a word here or there. They both have their moments where they look like they're a little bit, they're giddy for it. Like, they know that they have damn near met their match. Whenever you talk about on the microphone, verbally attacking each other, this is a hell of a matchup here. This isn't, Batista versus Triple H in terms of in the ring. Like, look at these two behemoths going at it. This is something different. It's another form of professional wrestling. And it's going to be the match that I'm most excited for whenever I watch Payback. Just being completely honest. Like, I'm all for the Seth Rollins and Shinsuke Nakamura match. That one's probably going to be a better match. But I'm not as excited for that one as I am for this one. I love what LA Knight's doing. I need to get me an LA Knight shirt for sure before we go to Raw at OKC on October 16th. But I, 100%, I need to get me some LA Knight merch, because he is someone who, that's how we let WWE know that we're behind someone. Buy the hell out of their merch, because that's what they see. Like, dollar signs is what's get their attention a hell of a lot more than a tweet. You could tweet at them 10 times out of 10. Hey, push this guy, give this guy a title shot. Go buy 5 of that guy's shirts. They'll notice that a hell of a lot quicker, I promise. So yeah, as far as this little interaction that they had, Miz and LA Knight, it was good. LA Knight talks about how, him and the Miz are not the same at all. He brought up the reality TV, how he came in off that and pretty much just scratched around, ate crumbs and all that stuff until he was actually relevant on the main roster, where LA Knight had to literally scratch and claw, live in crappy apartments, take the bus, walk to work because he missed the bus, all that good stuff. They're pretty much just, alluding to the fact that they have very different paths And then Miz, I'm not going to lie, he hits LA Knight a little bit where it hurts. He brings up the reality TVs. Everybody talks about me being a reality TV star. Guess what? I was a good reality TV star. What about you? He brings up LA Knight being on a reality TV show, which I was not aware of on the spot. He brings it up and says, but guess what? You weren't even good at that. You got kicked off. You were voted off first. And that, like, as an LA Knight fan, I was like, oh, damn, he got him there, man. He really did. Just because, like, obviously people talk about, I promise you, LA Knight will not bring up Miz being on a reality TV show ever again. Like, he will not. Whenever you get burnt like that, whenever he, hits you with a little bit of a mic drop, you got to give the Miz credit. He isn't backing down. He knows the whole crowd is behind LA Knight. Everyone wants to see LA Knight win this, and he's still just taking it to him. So, shout out to the Miz. I don't just throw around Miz compliments left and right, but I have to give him credit there. He definitely held his own there against LA Knight and ended up giving him a skull-crushing finale. And then he gets attacked from behind by LA Knight once they make their way up the ramp. They have to be split up. Like I said, just getting you excited, getting you prepared for the match that we're going to get tonight between LA Knight and The Miz. Definitely looking forward to that one. Up next, we get Shotzi versus Bayley. And as you would expect, just like anybody going up against someone from the Damage Control, they're going to be at a numbers disadvantage. Shotzi obviously was a little bit like 1 versus 3. She didn't care. She wasn't scared. She was laughing the whole time. But eventually, the odds get evened out a little bit whenever Charlotte Flair comes out, gives Io Sky a big boot, which, let's be honest, the camera crew did not help her out there. It was not a great big boot that we saw. We saw the back view of it, and yeah, it's why I refuse. It's stuff like that. It's those shots, and I know it's not really a fault to Charlotte, but I do feel like stuff like that happens to her a lot. Like, I've seen a lot of Charlotte botches. That's why whenever people get defensive when they're talking about, the greatest women's wrestler of all time, they really do like to paint a picture and make you think that Charlotte is a flawless wrestler. Great on the mic, nothing wrong with her. She carries every match she's in, when that is really not the case. When it talks about bell to bell, like when you're talking about someone who can actually put on a hell of a wrestling show, Charlotte is elite, but she's not perfect. And there are moments where that's magnified. And sometimes, like I said, the camera crew really doesn't help her out. It was her first actual spot in, I don't know how long she's been gone for, probably a few weeks at least. So it's been a long time since Charlotte Flair has actually done something on television. So I'm not completely just trying to crap on her. But, it is what it is. It wasn't the prettiest big boot that she gave Io Sky. And another thing, number one, Shotzi does end up defeating Bayley here after Charlotte gives her help. But, dude, Charlotte is always around the title. Like, has there ever been a program where she isn't involved in a championship? Like, I know she fought Trish Stratus, right, at Survivor Series or SummerSlam, something like that a couple years back. But since then, or even before then, what does she do that is not centered around the championship? And I feel like she's a good enough wrestler. She's good enough at, those grudge feuds where there's actually, a personal vendetta against someone that she doesn't need a championship or to be around it. Like, let's let the championship touch some other hands. Let's let some other people be involved in this. I know there's 2 women's championships, and Charlotte's at the top of the roster. You could only keep a legend underneath for so long, But I just feel like, what the hell, dude? Let's get something going on here where it's not about the championship. We could have her feud with anybody else. So I don't know. It's just something that I noticed. I was like, of course, Charlotte's coming back, and it's immediately going to be involved in the championship picture. I'm not, complaining about it, but it's just something that I noticed and I want to point out. Man, I feel like Charlotte is capable of so much more. They're making her career live or die with championships. And I understand she's a Flair. She already has, 14 of them? So clearly, they're doing with Charlotte what they're always going to do, with what they've always done with her, but I just feel like there's more there. There's more beneath the surface that we could get with Charlotte, and WWE just isn't giving it to us for whatever reason. However, let's go ahead and move on here to the main event, AJ Styles versus Solo Sikoa. The match does not go on for very long before Paul Heyman makes his way out to the ring, and obviously Jimmy Uso makes his way to the ring as well, and he actually gets involved a little bit. It seems like AJ Styles was about to steal the win with a phenomenal forearm, and then Jimmy Uso kind of knocks him off the rope, goes back and hides. Solo Sikoa does win with a Samoan spike, defeats AJ Styles, and then after the match, whenever Jimmy Uso goes inside the ring to try to celebrate with Solo wasn't having it. He's trying to hit him with a Samoan spike, and then quickly Paul Heyman stops him. He's like, no, don't do that, don't do that. It's almost like he was giving advice for Jimmy Uso to be protected. Paul Heyman didn't want Solo to do it, so he doesn't. They leave the ring. Jimmy Uso, just I guess as a way to, just for good measure, he hits AJ Styles with a super kick and a Uso splash off the top rope, and then throws his one up to the sky as if we're in January here, and the bloodline is still strong as ever, you know? So that's one thing that I was like, man, like, are they really going to let this guy back in? Is he not the one who super kicked Roman Reigns? Like, is he not the one that, out of both of the Usos, that tried to, you know, do this first? Now, we heard his reasons why, all that stuff, but still, the fact that Jimmy Uso was just trying to waltz right back in the bloodline, I'm just like, like, what, why? You know, like, it's just, I guess they're going to have to explain a little bit more. We're going to have to hear from Roman Reigns, but I don't know. I do want to see him versus John Cena at some point. Just the visual of that just looked appealing. Him telling him the wrong Uso quit. I have a feeling that Jimmy isn't going to let that slide for very much longer. But that is the SmackDown review, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you guys enjoyed the Go Home show for Payback. And, you know, obviously, make sure that you tune into Payback tonight because it's going to be a hell of a pay-per-view. I really believe that. There's some damn good matches. It hasn't been hyped up. It's so close to SummerSlam. Like, it's hard to get excited for this short of a build. But think about it, guys. Rhea Ripley, Raquel Rodriguez, Shinsuke Nakamura, Seth Rollins. You got LA Knight versus Miz. Rey Mysterio fighting Austin Theory, defending his United States Championship. And also you have the Tag Team Championships being defended as well. There's a lot of matches that you can be excited about. There's a lot of matches that I feel like are going to over-deliver in terms of what's expected of them. So definitely tune in and check out those. I'll run through my quick predictions here and tell you who I think is going to win the Undisputed Tag Team Championship. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn versus Judgment Day, a.k.a. Damian Priest and Finn Balor. I'm definitely rolling with KO and Sami here. I know that they've been advertised to defend their Tag Team Championships at a live event that's going to be is it India? I'm not sure exactly, but I know that they are going to push Indus Sher into a title match here. So that could be where they lose them, but I don't expect them to lose them here. That match has already been advertised. And obviously, Judgment Day, they have their own stuff going on. Priest has the Money in the Bank, so there's really no reason for the Tag Team Championships to be included there, but it wouldn't shock me if they do put the Tag Team titles on Judgment Day just to make that group a little bit more of a threat. The Miz versus LA Knight, I'm going with LA Knight for sure. This is just his moment. You can't have him lose to The Miz. You can justify having him lose, you know, the Royal Rumble, Money in the Bank, all that good stuff, but you cannot have him lose to The Miz in this feud. So I'm definitely thinking that LA Knight goes over there. United States Championship, Rey Mysterio versus Austin Theory. This one's obviously going to be Rey Mysterio. It would be the dumbest decision you could possibly make. Putting any type of championship back on Austin Theory at this point in time, you got to let him build himself back up. And yeah, he's not beating Rey Mysterio for that title. Steel cage match, Trish Stratus versus Becky Lynch. This one's got to go to Becky. I just feel like they're trying to keep, what's her name? Zoe Stark. They're trying to keep her out with this steel cage. Who knows? I mean, we see this not be effective many, many times, where a steel cage does not keep whoever you're trying to keep out of the cage. I mean, they somehow still manage to get involved, but I just feel like Becky Lynch has to win this. She just has to. She has to go over here on the legend, and that's what I feel like is going to happen. Rhea Ripley versus Raquel Rodriguez. Rhea Ripley definitely going to defend her championship successfully. Although I'm a big fan of Raquel. When John and I were there in San Antonio for the Royal Rumble, she was the one that I was desperately hoping would get the win there. It didn't happen, obviously, but I was still rooting for her. So seeing her get this championship opportunity, it is nice, but I know that the time is not right now, and Raquel just isn't going to be the one to dethrone Rhea Ripley at this point in time. And up next, we got the World Heavyweight Championship, Seth Rollins versus Shinsuke Nakamura. This one's a little bit tough to pick because obviously I do want to see Shinsuke Nakamura win, but Seth Rollins is carrying the company right now. And this is just his time, you know. They're not going to take this championship off him. I truly do not believe that. So I think every championship is going to be successfully retained on Payback. And we'll see if I end up being accurate there in those predictions. But nonetheless, guys, hope you all have a damn good weekend. Enjoy the pay-per-view tonight. Spend time with your family. Do whatever you like to do that, can lead to you having a damn good time. Whatever that is, just go do that. Thank you so much for listening. Go listen to the Football Function if you haven't already. And if you have, I damn sure appreciate you guys. Continue the support because it does make a difference. It means the world to us, content creators. Like, that's really all that's all you really need to do. Like, a lot of people think, like, you need to plug the show. You need to, go subscribe or donate or something like that. Like, no. Your support, you downloading the show is enough. So, just that goes to anybody. If you have a friend out there that is doing what they can to be a content creator, if they're doing something, that they're dedicating their time to build a brand or just to build up their own platform, show them some support, no matter what it is. Like, if you have a friend that's a photographer that takes pictures, book them, book them to shoot a photo shoot or something like that and actually pay them. Like, 'cause that's one thing. A lot of people will see someone, like, say that your friend just got a gig creating T-shirts. Like they got one of those little steam press machines where they can put designs on T-shirts, and you know that that's what they're trying to do as like a side hobby, a way to make some extra cash. Like the thing that you don't do is walk up to them and say, hey, can you give me like a free shirt? Can you give me a discount on the shirt? No. The way that you support them is to go buy a shirt from them. Hell, buy 2 shirts from them. Give them a tip. Do something that's going to help their business or whatever they're doing take a step forward. That's some advice I could give you guys in terms of, ways that you can help out your fellow content creators and just your fellow entrepreneurs and ambitious people. So one more time, guys, have a damn good weekend. Enjoy the pay-per-view. Walk passionately in the direction of your dreams, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.